Welcome to the chemistry.
Welcome to chemistry
So,
class.
I welcome all of you to the today's chemistry class. In the today's class, we are going to study about the topic that we are going to study is the chapter 3. The name of this chapter is Atoms and Molecules. तो बच्चों आज हम एटम्स एंड मॉलिक्यूल्स के बारे में पढ़ने जा रहे हैं। तो चलिए आज की पढ़ाई स्टार्ट करते हैं और एटम्स एंड मॉलिक्यूल्स के बारे में पढ़ना शुरू करते हैं। तो आप जानते हैं बच्चों, मैं यहाँ पे कुछ लिखने वाला हूँ और आपको मुझे बताना है कि मैंने क्या लिखा है। थोड़ा ध्यान दीजिएगा सब लोग। Everybody has to pay attention and you need to tell me what is written. बताइए क्या लिखा मैंने। स्क्रीन पे आपको क्या दिख रहा है?
H2.
H2.
What is the meaning of this?
Water.
Someone of you said it is water. So H2O is water. मैं H2O लिखता हूं, आपको पता चल जाता है वो वाटर है। What is the meaning of H and O? बताइए। Tell me what is H and what is O?
Hydrogen and oxygen.
H represents hydrogen. O represent oxygen. तो H and O को क्या बोलते हैं? What are these H and O? बता सकते हैं आप? They are the symbols. They are the symbols. ये किसके सिंबल है? हाइड्रोजन एंड ऑक्सीजन। या हाइड्रोजन एंड ऑक्सीजन क्या है? What are these hydrogen and oxygen? So my dear students, if you look at this hydrogen and oxygen, they are known as the elements. So dear students, these hydrogen and oxygens are known as the elements. चलिए बच्चों, अब now we are going to study about the various laws. So you can see here I have written a question for you. Write the law of constant proportion. What is the meaning or what this law tells us that law of constant proportion in a chemical substance, the elements are always present in a definite proportion by mass. Let us try to understand this. इसका मतलब क्या है? ये क्या कहना चाह रहा है? तो यहाँ पे आप देख रहे हैं कि we have a chemical substance H2O. Your H2O is a chemical substance. In this chemical substance H2O, we have two elements. What are these two elements present in H2O, my dear students?
Hydrogen and oxygen.
One is hydrogen, another is oxygen. These two elements in H2O are present in a fixed proportion. These two elements are present in a fixed proportion. by mass, इसका मतलब क्या हुआ? What is the meaning of this by mass? तो इसका मतलब होता है बच्चों, इसका मतलब होता है कि मास ऑफ हाइड्रोजन एंड मास ऑफ ऑक्सीजन, if we take ratio, that means if we take the mass of O present in H2O, and if we take mass of hydrogen present in H2O, this is what it is always constant. Constant, what is the meaning of constant? That this proportion my dear students, never change. The proportion of this hydrogen and oxygen does not change, is always constant, and constant means does not change. So this is how, my dear students, we understand the law of constant proportion, and this law of constant proportion says to us, my dear students, that in a chemical substance, the elements are always present in a definite proportion by mass. चलिए इसको थोड़ा और डिटेल में समझते हैं. Write the another name of law of constant proportion and who proposed this law. The law of constant proportion can also be known as law of definite proportion, and this law was stated by Proust. This law was stated by Proust. Proust is the name of the scientist. My dear students, please remember that Proust is the name of the scientist. This is the name of the scientist who proposed this law, who gave this law. Now we are going to understand it little bit more with the new question. Explain the law of constant proportion or law of definite proportion. So let us explain, let us understand it in detail. Lavoisier was also a scientist. Along with the other scientists, noted that many compounds were composed of two or more than two elements. हमने अभी देखा, we have seen that H2O is made up of hydrogen and oxygen. These two are elements. So there are so many elements, or there are so many substances which are made up of more than two elements or two elements, irrespective of from where the compound come from. The proportion by mass of element present in the compound remains constant or definite. चलिए इसी चीज को let us try to understand with one example. Let us take an example to understand the law of constant proportion or a definite proportion. If a sample of water, remember, if a sample of water taken from India, कुछ पानी हम इंडिया से लेते हैं, from USA, from Australia, from South Africa, from Antarctica, and then the proportion by mass of hydrogen and oxygen is in this sample is being measured, and it is found that the proportion of by mass is 1:8. What is the meaning this? What is the meaning of this statement that if you take the mass of hydrogen divided by, if you take the mass of hydrogen divided by the mass of oxygen in H2O, then this ratio you will always get 1 by 8. That is what it is represented as. The ratio is always 1 is to 8. So if your hydrogen is 2 gram, then oxygen is going to be 16 gram, so that you can easily cancel it out and you get 1 by 8. If the mass of hydrogen is suppose 3 gram, then the mass of oxygen must be
8 gram.
24 gram, so that
24.
we can cancel them out to get the ratio 1 by 8. So my dear students, in any of the country, at any part of the world, if you go and take the same compound, you go and take the same substance, and if you measure the ratio of the various elements present in that particular substance, then this ratio of those substances present into that, the ratio of the elements which are present into that substance are always going to remain the same, are always remain to remain constant, and that is what it tells us, or that is what it is told by Joseph Prost, and he explained that this proportion remain constant, this proportion remain definite. Now, my dear students, we are going to study more about a theory which is known as the Dalton's atomic theory. So let us try to read the next question, or let us read the next question. Write Dalton's atomic theory, all points of Dalton's atomic theory, or write the postulates of Dalton's atomic theory. Now, my dear students, here it is very important to understand the word postulates. What are these postulates? So, postulates are those statements which do not have which do not have postulates are those substance, those statements which do not have experimental proof. The scientist Dalton have not done any experiment, have observed something, and on the basis of that, he gave these postulates. That means these all 6 points that we are going to study, they do not have any experimental proof. Any proof for these points is not available, but they are just explained, they are just given by the scientist Dalton, and that is why, and that is how it is known as the Dalton's atomic theory, or the postulates of Dalton's atomic theory. These all 6 points that we are going to study, they do not have any experimental proof. Now let us study these points. because we want to study about the atoms and molecules. So first we should know about the matter. So the scientist Dalton says that all matter is made up of very teeny particles called atoms. So suppose someone asks you what is an atom? We can easily answer that metal, all the matter is made up of very teeny particles, and these teeny particles are called atoms. Next, atoms are indivisible particles. What is the meaning of indivisible? Atoms are indivisible particle. What is the meaning of indivisible, my dear students? कोई बता सकता है
We
आप
can't.
में से? What is the meaning of indivisible? Indivisible
हम
means
इसको हम
cannot be
देख सकते
divided further. Indivisible means indivisible means cannot be divided further. Indivisible means cannot be divided further. मतलब हम इनको तोड़ के अंदर से कुछ और नहीं निकाल सकते. So whenever we have atoms, these atoms are going to be the smallest, and in atom there is nothing present. You cannot break atoms and you get something. ऐसा बता रहे हैं. So atoms are indivisible, which cannot be, atoms are indivisible particles which cannot be created or destroyed in a chemical reaction. So if there is a chemical reaction, my dear students, कोई chemical reaction अगर होती है, we cannot generate, we cannot produce atoms by ourselves. So atoms cannot be produced, atoms cannot be destroyed or broken or vanished away in a chemical reaction. So whenever there is a chemical reactions, these atoms are going to be saved. The atoms are not broken down. The atoms are not destroyed, or new atoms are not produced during any chemical reactions. That is what the scientist or the scientist Dalton wants to tell us. Then the third point. Atoms of a given element are identical in mass and chemical properties. It means that if you have atoms of the same element, they are going to be identical in mass and they are going to be identical in chemical properties. Identical means same. Remember the meaning of identical. Identical means same. So if you have same element, if you take the element oxygen, so all the atoms of oxygen, they have same mass and they have same chemical properties. Fourth point, atoms of different element have different masses and different chemical properties. That means if you take the atom of oxygen and if you take the atom of hydrogen, these both atoms have different mass and different properties. So this is important, my dear students, that the point number 3 and 4 tell us about the atoms, that atoms of the same elements have same mass and properties. Atoms of different elements have different mass and properties. That is what we can understand. Then the next point, my dear students, let's have a look at the next point. Atoms combines in the ratio of small whole number to form compound. Now see, once again the come here, the same thing come here, that atoms combine in a ratio of small whole number to form compound. For example, you can take the hydrogen atom, you have hydrogen atom, you have oxygen atom, they combine in the ratio 2 is to 1. So two atoms of hydrogen, one atom of oxygen, they combine and they make water. So please remember, atom combines in the ratio of small whole number to form compounds. Sorry. The relative number and kind of atom are constant in a given compound. In this compound, if we take water, then the ratio of hydrogen to oxygen is always 2 is to 1 by number, or is always 1 is to 8 by mass. So these are the important points of Dalton's atomic theory, my dear students. Please learn all the points of Dalton's atomic theory. They are very important. Now let's look at the next question. Name the theory that provide explanation for law of conservation of mass and law of definite proportion. So it is the Dalton's atomic theory that provide an explanation for the law of conservation of mass and law of definite proportion. तो चलिए ये 6 पॉइंट में से फाइंड आउट करते हैं विच इज द लॉ ऑफ कंजर्वेशन ऑफ मास. तो लुक एट दिस पॉइंट, यहां पे देखिए, when you look at this point, what you can see here is that during the chemical reaction, my dear students, during the chemical reaction, my dear students, the new atoms cannot be formed and old atoms cannot be destroyed. That means there will be no new mass formed and old mass will not be destroyed, and we can say that this is the law of conservation of mass. This tells us the conservation of mass. Then here look at this, at the 6th point, that the relative numbers and kinds of atoms are constant. Matlab, the atoms combine in a ratio and this ratio is always constant. So ratio is constant, which tells us about the constant proportion. So this is how, my dear students, we truly understand about that the Dalton's atomic theory tells us about the law of conservation of mass as well as the law of definite proportion. So we can easily understand the law of conservation of mass into the Dalton's atomic theory, as well as we can easily understand the law of definite proportion. The next question. Which postulates of Dalton's atomic theory is the result of law of conservation of mass? So I have written the postulates. Postulates, atoms are indivisible particles which cannot be created or destroyed in a chemical reaction. Is the postulates of Dalton's atomic theory, which is the result of law of conservation of mass. Next question. Which postulates of Dalton's atomic theory can explain the law of definite proportion? The postulates, the relative number and kinds of atoms are constant in given compound, is the postulates of Dalton's atomic theory that can explain the law of definite proportion, my dear students. So now, my dear students, we are going to study the definition of atom. So the question is, what is an atom? Let us try to understand what is an atom. An atom is the building block of matter. Remember, my dear students, that we cannot prepare any matter without any atom. So, what does it mean? That it simply means that all matter is made up of atoms. All matter is made up of atoms. जितनी भी दुनिया में चीजें हैं, आप जो कुछ भी देख सकते हैं, they are all made up of atoms, and that is why an atom is the building block of matter. How big are atoms? This is even very important for us to know about atoms. So we should know atoms are how much big, how big are these atoms. So atoms are very small. They are not so big, but they are very small. They are smaller than anything that we imagine or compare. They are smaller than anything that we imagine or compare, with more than millions of atoms when stacked would make a layer barely as thick as thin sheet of paper. बच्चों, ये हमें बताना चाह रहे हैं कि अगर हमें जो हमारी नोटबुक में पेज है, जो पेपर है, उतनी मोटी, उतनी उतनी शीट की थिकनेस का कोई चीज बनानी है, तो उसके लिए हमें मिलियंस मतलब लाखों करोड़ों एटम्स चाहिए, तब जाके पेपर के शीट जितनी पतली चीज हमें बन के मिल सकती है. They are so small, atoms इतने छोटे होते हैं that we cannot see with the naked eyes. एटम इतने छोटे होते हैं बच्चों कि हम अपनी खुली आंखों से उनको देख ही नहीं पाते. We cannot see with the naked eyes. In which units atomic radius is measured, and write the relation of its unit with the meter. तो बच्चों, atomic radius is measured in nanometer. Atomic radius is measured in the unit called nanometer, and 1 nanometer is equal to 1 divided by 10 to the power 9 meter, or 1 meter is equal to 10 to the power 9 nanometer. That means it is you can see that 1 meter is equal to 1 after 90 nanometer. 1 meter is equal to 1 after 90 nanometer. This is a big number. And 1 meter is, the length of your two hands. Your two hands, if we combine, it is the length of 1 meter approximately, not sure, but this is what we can understand. तो बच्चों, ये एटम्स बहुत छोटे होते हैं और उनकी जो रेडियस है उसको नैनोमीटर में मेजर किया जाता है. नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन. Write the radius of atoms of hydrogen, molecule of water, molecule of hemoglobin, grain of sand and watermelon in meter. देखिए इनकी जो रेडियस है वो हमें मीटर में लिखनी है. तो atom of hydrogen has the radius of 10 to the power minus 10 meter. Atom of hydrogen has the radius of 10 to the power minus 10 meter. मतलब 1 मीटर को हम कितने से डिवाइड करेंगे? 10 टू द पावर 10. मतलब 1 2 3 4 5 6. 1 मीटर को इतने बड़े नंबर से जब हम डिवाइड करते हैं तो हमें हाइड्रोजन की रेडियस मिलती है बच्चों. इसी से आप समझ सकते हैं कि कितना, हाउ स्मॉल इज द रेडियस ऑफ द हाइड्रोजन. Molecule of water, radius of molecule of water is 1 nanometer, 10 to the power minus 9 meter. Molecule of hemoglobin, hemoglobin is found in our blood, and the size of hemoglobin or the radius of the hemoglobin is 10 to the power minus 8 meter. Grain of sand, ये जो मिट्टी का कण होता है, grain of sand has got the radius 10 to the power minus 4 meter. एंट, चीटी हम देखते हैं ना, एंट, चीटी, the radii of चीटी, radii of ant is 10 to the power minus 2 meter. मतलब 1 मीटर को we will divide into 100 parts. So it is 1 by 100 meter. And watermelon जो होता है,